Let's bring in Kevin Green, senior markets correspondent, right away to help set up the action today. All right, KG, so one day doesn't make a trend in terms of November, but how would you characterize where we stand now?
Yesterday was a very strong showing for the market. When you're kind of looking at the technical landscape here, we did get fairly close to a key moving average, that 50-day moving average. We only closed about 10 points away from it. So today you'd like to see a little bit of a follow-through day. But yesterday we also saw market breadth expanding, and it wasn't just concentrated in the mega cap tech names. It was more than just consumer discretionary tech as well as communication services here. And that's exactly what you would like to see today. Now, obviously, we'll get into some of the news flow here, Diane, around the setup for today's session. But I think yesterday it was a little bit of a win. It was a start. You need a follow-through day in order to really confirm that maybe the bears are a little bit done for right now, at least for this week, and maybe the bulls can actually overcome some of these hurdles here. If we do see a failure today and we close a little bit lower, that's where you get a little bit concerned that maybe the market is still looking for a narrative. And now yesterday also was a little bit of a light volume day. That's usually what happens in the week like this week where we have Thanksgiving, but we would like to see a little bit more volume once again, and the market's moving to the upside here. That will give you a little bit more confidence that maybe we have seen a short-term bottom.
When you talk about the news flow for today's show, are you speaking about Alphabet, Google, or what are you thinking, like retail sales, et cetera?
No, Alphabet, Google is going to be very interesting, and Nvidia. I think if you do see this little rotation or this battle between the TPUs and the GPU space, how does that actually impact the broader market? Nvidia obviously has a bigger market cap. Google continues to move to the upside here. You also are seeing Broadcom move to the upside here. But how does that rotation really look like, and how much of an impact could it have on the market? I think if you are seeing dollars still staying within the market, I think you're not going to see that much of an impact, but you start seeing some individuals kind of going on the sidelines from Nvidia, maybe deploying a little bit of capital within Alphabet, that could create the market to kind of pull back here a tad bit. So let's see how we actually kind of set this one up. But the communication services sector, now you got to look at it in a little bit of a different lens, because now you, once again, you have Google, Alphabet is in the communication services sector, and Meta is making a nice little stealth rally as well. That could also have an impact on the S&P 500. But once again, we're a little bit tech heavy on the semi space, and there's a lot more exposure when it comes to the GPU trade from the Nvidias, AMDs of the world, as well as the memory players that could also pull back a little bit, and once again make it a little bit heavier for the S&P to kind of advance here.
But it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game, right, in terms of Alphabet, Google versus Nvidia. Right?
I mean, the market's going to play it that way. I mean, you're going to hear commentary all day that there's going to be one player over the other, and I agree with you. The diversification of data centers and making sure that you have a diversified portfolio when you're building these things out makes a lot of sense. And GPUs, in some respects, is really going to be critical within the data center, because GPUs are a lot more versatile when it comes to the amount of things that they can do. The TPUs themselves, or the tensor processing units, they pretty much strip out all of that graphical capabilities, and they're just focusing really on math and really doing that well, and they're also able to do that at a lower cost when it comes to energy deployment and efficiency here. So there's a double-edged sword with both, if you will. And I don't think it's a zero-sum game at all. But once again, the market might perceive it to be as one, and if that is going to be the case, then that gyration or that rotation and fund flows could make it a little bit interesting when it comes to the market. That's how I look at it, the same way that you do, Diane. But everything's kind of black and white these days, and you're looking at these type of things in the market.
I know, because the thing is, I mean, and now it feels like you're on a boat and suddenly everyone's moving from one side of the boat to the other side of the boat. And before, within the mega cap tech names, it could be, a string of winners here, and you're looking for a string of winners. MoffettNathanson lifting its price target on Alphabet, Google to 315 this morning from 305. I feel like they may need to lift it higher from there based on the momentum that we've been seeing in Alphabet, Google. Any final thought on Nvidia before we dive into the latest with Alibaba's quarterly results?
Look, I mean, if Nvidia continues to pull back a little bit, look at that 170 level as an area of support. That's where we have seen buyers kind of stepping in before. Is that going to be the case this time around? If you're still looking at the price of sales and other metrics fundamentally when it comes to Nvidia, their growth is still, rising to the upside. It's still accelerating. It's still cheap on a relative basis. But if you're looking at these current growth rates, I think the concern is that their growth rates are going to stall out here a tad bit, because you are seeing maybe some market share being given up. We haven't had any of this news actually kind of confirmed yet as well, so we have to be mindful of that. But I would say that 170 level. And then also, too, look at Broadcom. Broadcom is actually in a consolidation and potentially going to break out. This one is actually probably underperforming compared to Google as well. And Broadcom is really at the heart of the overall overall TPU space in general. So there might be a little bit more perceived value that is there as well. And last but not least, when it comes to this kind of scenario, what does crypto do as well, right? It's different from the AI space, but you are seeing cryptocurrencies also selling off. That could be a little bit of a headwind for the broader market.
All right, let's talk Alibaba. Those shares moving higher in the pre-market this morning off the back of its quarterly results. What are some of your takeaways here?
Yeah, well, we talked about yesterday on Fast Market, we kind of talked about the setup. You could have the market paying a premium because of the artificial intelligence story, or you could look at maybe some of the consumer growth and maybe there's a little bit of concern. But the market is obviously appreciative of this earnings announcement. We are seeing the shares up around 3% so far in today's session here. They did beat both on the top and bottom line. Total revenue came in at $34.8 billion. If you're looking at the dollar equivalent, that's around a 5% increase on a year-over-year basis here. And cloud computing revenue increased by 34% on a year-over-year basis. So you continue to see an acceleration there. The last quarter, they actually saw cloud revenue increase by 26% on a year-over-year basis. So you can kind of see materially that the AI demand is still ramping up within the China market here. Now, they're still spending a significant amount of money when it comes to building out their artificial intelligence business. And that is eating into profits. But the market right now is kind of discounting that and looking forward to the future when it comes to the revenue growth and also kind of the market share that they could take away here. If you're looking at the consumer business, that also did relatively well. You're looking at around a 16% growth on a year-over-year basis. Once again, EBITDA coming in a tad bit. They're spending a lot of money on certain parts of their business, but overall, this is actually a pretty decent result, moving about 3% to the upside. Let's see if this one's going to be able to hold. I still believe it's within the market maker move, but it's a good story, and you are seeing some other stocks related to the China trade catching a bid after this report as well.
Okay, let's get your levels on the S&P 500. We finished at 67.05 yesterday. Where do we go from here to the upside and downside?
Yeah, to the upside, 67.50. To the downside, 66.20. You still have a VIX of around 20, Diane, so you're still implying around a 1.2% move in the market. I would be very cautious here if this narrative does shift from this TPU, GPU situation, and if cryptocurrencies are starting to sell off here a tad bit. I think that would actually create a little bit of resistance for the market, at least for now, barring any positive news flow we could see throughout the session.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you, KG. That is our Kevin Green, Senior Markets Correspondent.